idea of what's going to happen, and you're kind of herded through like cattle and pushed over here and pushed over there and separated and moved around, and vaccines, and I mean just everything. It's just overwhelming at first, and then you kind of fall into your routine of getting up before the butt crack of dawn, and doing your PT and eating and doing your whatever other job. Like we would work in the kitchen, and we would do sanitation, and we would pick up garbage in the area. And it was a busy time.
All right. The question says, which wars did you serve in? You said
I was in Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
Yeah.
What kind of circumstances were you under?
When we got to Saudi, we went to a place called King Khalid Military City, which is, I understand, about 60 miles south of Iraq. I'm not exactly sure because it was long before, Google, and we didn't have smartphones and all those things to figure out where we were. Middle of the desert, really nothing around. We built a 400-bed hospital out of canvas tents, because we had no idea were there going to be that many casualties, what was going to go on. So we had everything from x-ray, dental, obstetrics. I mean, we had everything. It was like a little city. We built all of our living quarters. We built the mess hall, the sanitation the outhouses, and all of those things had to be built, and they don't bring anybody in to do it. So even as nurses, and we had doctors and everybody else, we all built these things, which was actually really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember what arriving was like for the first time?
There?
Yeah.
Oh, it was a cluster. You came in we flew out on commercial airliners at that point because there wasn't enough military planes. So when we finally got there, they had to figure out where to put us for a while, and then we had to get all of our supplies together because they were coming over on cargo and ships and all of these things. So we had to wait for all of our hospital supplies and everything. So we ended up doing not a lot of anything for about 3 weeks. We ended up actually sleeping in a parking garage because they didn't have anywhere to put us. It was interesting.
Let's see. What are some of your most memorable experiences?
Probably in Saudi Arabia, it was very interesting because women were still looked very down upon. There were places that I couldn't go, even if I had a male escort. Places that we couldn't go without a head cover. There were places that we couldn't go in our uniform, so we had to wear regular clothes, but they had to be long sleeve and long pants. There were places that we went that we had to wear our uniform. One really memorable thing is we were walking through this town, and we were not allowed to go by ourselves, of course. So we were walking, and this Saudi gentleman asked if his son, he was like 3 years old, his son wanted to touch my hair. His dad said that he had never seen a redhead before, so the little boy just twirled my hair, and I mean, it was the cutest thing, and that to me kind of said, you know what, all kids are alike, so we're all alike. And even, when you're 17 hours away by plane, there's still things that that bring us all together. But it was strange. Like, cars would drive by and they would ask the person that a woman was with if they wanted to trade that woman for a car. Yeah. If you were walking by, they would like touch you, like they had access to your body because you were a woman, and and especially American woman, because they considered us like dirty, and so they felt like they had access, which was weird. Yeah, because we don't do that.
Yeah.
If we did that here, if somebody touched you here, you'd punch them in the face, But over there, they just felt like they had access. And so that was pretty memorable to me, is just the difference in how they treat different people.
Did you see any combat?
No, I was in an evac hospital. I was in the 44th evac hospital. So we were pretty far back from the front line. We would have been second. First on the front line is a MASH hospital, where they would stabilize them enough to come to us, which is an evac hospital, and we would stabilize them enough to put them on a plane and get them to Germany. We did see some Marines that were minesweeping in Kuwait, and got the mines blew up. And so we did see a few of those, young guys come in, and we did what we could to stabilize them enough to get to Germany. But we had the F-16s flying overhead just day and night, like constant, just constant. That was kind of scary.
So how were you able to stay in touch with your family?
We had, at that time, they had call centers. They had these big, huge tents set up with telephones, and they were routed through, I don't even know where, and you had like 15 minutes to call. You had to call collect, and it was super expensive, and they listened to everything you said, and it was kind of interesting. And you had to wait in line, and you had to wait for your turn. Actually, one funny thing is our hospital unit was bedded up right next to an Air Force base, and they had like F-16s and the B-52 bombers and all those things, so we could not have any POWs. But, so our communications guys hooked up to their phone lines or whatever, and we got to call home. Well, if you knew the communication guys, you got to call home. So like at 2 or 3 in the morning, I would go and they'd figure out how to call home, and I'd call home, and we could just talk, and so that was cool.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Just the medals that came with being in a war. I think it's called the Kuwait Liberation Medal, and there's like an overseas medal. No Purple Heart or anything.
That's a good thing.
Yes, it is a good thing.
Did you have plenty of supplies while you were over there?
Yes, we did. We had to eat MREs a lot, which are nasty. Yes.
I have a family friend who is serving in, well, he's in the National Guard. He said the MREs are just super bland, and anything after that just tastes amazing.
It does. So we had MREs, but we did have like pre-made meals that the cooks would heat up, and like big family style things. Not a lot of fresh food. We would get some oranges from Egypt sometimes, and those were a hot commodity. There was a little store that we could go to, and we were all addicted to ramen. We could get all kinds of different ramen, and so we ate that for, so much ramen.
Do you recall any humorous or unusual events?
There was a lot of humorous things. I mean, being there was very nerve-wracking because you really didn't know what was going on. But we had actually quite a lot of fun, looking back. We had volleyball tournaments, we had helicopter pilots that would fly in, and so we would pay them to bring alcohol, because that's important. We were all over 21, of course. But we would pay the helicopter pilots to bring us in some vodka or whatever, and people are funny. And when you're in that kind of situation, in our tent, I mean, it was a huge long tent with probably 20 people that slept in there. And it was co-ed, which was interesting because we had to get undressed and get dressed and, without, showing all the goods to everybody. So that made for an interesting time right there. Our boots, for example, we had to dump them out, or shake them out every morning. There were scorpions and weird things that would crawl in your boots and weird stuff. So that was actually, sometimes if you forgot and you put your foot in and there's some grossness in there. I mean, it's gross at the time, but looking back now, it's funny. Nobody got hurt by the scorpions or anything.
Was there anything you used as like a good luck charm or something?
No. No, I take that back. My mom sent me with me, some things of hers. So I took some things of hers with me.
Did you keep a personal diary?
I did, but I wasn't very good at it. I maybe had 10 days total. And of course it's, young girl, stupid diary stuff. I found it actually, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I was looking through, I'm like, oh my God, how dramatic can you actually be? But
did you feel any pressure or stress?
Yes, quite a bit. We didn't know what was going to happen. There were jets flying overhead 24/7. Just the noise was stressful. There was a time that air raid horns went off and we didn't know if it was real or not. Like chemical warfare was a real concern at that time, and we didn't know what was going to go on. And the air raid sirens went off, and we had, to get on our masks, and I couldn't get it sealed right, and I was, really in a panic, thinking that, I could die, or, somebody else could die if I don't get this on right and help them. And so that kind of stress was prevalent almost all the time. There was a time where we had to do some training and go into this bunker. And I didn't think I was claustrophobic until I had to go into this bunker that was pitch dark. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't see anything, and we had no idea if it was for real, if it was training. That stress is crazy. When the helicopters come down with the wounded, you don't know what you're gonna get. We were very lucky and didn't have a lot of wounded, but the ones we did have were really, like the landmines, and some were really bad.
How do people entertain themselves?
Entertain?
Yeah.
We read a lot, because there wasn't smartphones and all the fun stuff that people have now. We read, we played games. We wrote letters. You know, I have hundreds of letters that were sent to me, which is amazing. But that meant I have to write back, you know, all these letters too. There wasn't a lot to keep you super busy. We did have 12-hour shifts, you know, either in the hospital or at whatever job you had. And then we had other jobs on top of that. There wasn't a whole lot of free time.
What do you think of officers or fellow soldiers?
Say that.
Like, what do you think of your officers or fellow soldiers, or just people you were with?
Most were great. You know, it's like everything else, you're always going to have those ones that you don't like, but, you know, that's just people. Most everybody, you know, had not ever been in anything like this, so we were all kind of all in the same boat. You know, and being in a hospital unit is different than being in artillery or, you know, things like that. You know, we had a little more latitude with what we did, but everybody was pretty chill. And we were all reservists, so we were all leaving, you know, jobs and homes, and, you know, none of us expected to have to go do this.
Do you have any photographs?
I have a couple. So I was going through my pictures, and a lot of my pictures did not make it back. They got lost somewhere in the shuffle. So I do have some pictures, and I found some Saudi money. Very few pictures, but I can pass them around when we're ready, if you want. So that's like one of the few pictures I have of me in a uniform, and that was in Saudi Arabia. And let's see, what's that one? That is where, it's just kind of a picture of the desert, but that was a place where we washed up, and when we first got there, there wasn't a bathroom built yet. And that's me in my gas mask. And that is part of the hospital that we were building. So they were all out of big, huge canvas tents.
Yeah, cool.
And that was where I lived. That was my little area, my cot. And so I had a little area about this big of everything I owned. Yeah, and not very comfortable. That's just messing around in the gas mask. Yeah. And that was when I was in school in San Antonio. We were getting ready to graduate. So that was our dress uniform. And that I brought to show that tent behind her is one of the tents that we lived in. And that is the day I came home.
Do you recall the day that you ended your service?
I do. It was that day that I came home. When we flew home, we went to Maine first, and it was the most amazing thing. The halls were lined with Vietnam vets that were there to welcome us because they didn't have that when they came home. And so that was very touching, so touching. And actually, another thing about the Maine airport is I read a lot of Stephen King, and he's from Maine, and there was a bar in the airport, in this particular airport, that was in his book, and I got to go see that bar. So that was pretty amazing. I know I'm such a nerd, but it was very cool. And then when I got home, my family and friends were there to, with the signs, and that was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
What did you do on in the days and weeks afterward?
After I got home?
Yeah, anything.
I did a lot of nothing for a while. not too long, because, you know, at that time I was 25, I had to get a job and get back to work, you know. I didn't get to hang out too awful long. You know, Mom wouldn't let me live there forever.
What kind of job did you choose after you got out of service?
I went back actually to my previous job, which I was working in a doctor's office. So he had actually held my job for me, and I went back there, and which was cool.
Did you make any close friendships while in the service?
I did at the time. I don't really keep up with most. You know, life happens and you kind of lose track.
Afterwards, did you join any veterans organizations or anything?
No, but I've thought about it.
Yeah.
My father-in-law wants me to go to the American Legion, of course, and one of these days I'll actually do it.
What did you go on to do as a career after the war?
I'm still a nurse, so that training that I got in the Army has really paid off for me. You know, I got a career that's lasted 35 years and done me well.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war and like military in general?
Yes. I'm pretty liberal in my views, and I have discovered that there are a lot of very liberal people in the military. I was really thinking it would be a lot of conservative people, and it's not. And I think we all think about war the same, not all. Most of us think about war the same. You know, it's not what any of us want. You know, it's, you know, you get the wackadoodles that, you know, that do. But, you know, for the most part, you know, we all just want to have peace, and, you know, nobody wants to send their children to potentially die, you know.
How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Well, I'd like to say that it made me very neat and tidy, but it did not. I think I rebelled against all of that. But there are things I find that I still do, like, you know, if I get into my shoes or my boots, I make sure there's no bugs or anything in there. You know, sometimes those things kind of hold over, and, you know, I realize that I can do hard things. You know, I've done a lot of hard things, and doing those hard things have made me realize at a pretty young age that I can pretty much do anything, even if it's hard.
Yeah, so like if someone were to like join like what you did, is there like any advice you would give them before they join?
I really think that the military is a great thing for a lot of people. It teaches you how to become a group. It teaches you how to get along with all different kinds of people. It can give you a career that can last a lifetime, and you can do things and go places that you may not have a chance to do otherwise. You know, if college isn't the thing, you know, the military might be. You know, they have every type of job that you could ever think of. You know, these are cities that we build, you know, and there's everything from the housekeeper to the, you know, on up. There's so many things that you could do.
I believe that's all the questions we have. Thank you for sharing your experiences and collections, and thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for having me.
Is there anything else you'd like to share? Like,
well, I was going to ask the question of what were your actual like dates of service, like when you entered, maybe when you deployed and when you got out.
I went into basic training in '88. So I did basic training and then combat medic and nursing school, and got out of nursing school in late '89. was called up in, I think, October of 90, and yes, went to Oklahoma for pre-deployment stuff, and then went to Saudi Arabia, came back in May of 91. Yeah, so a busy few years right there, yeah.
And did you serve like the full 8, or did you do longer?
No, as a reservist, I had to, it's a total term of 8, but the last 2 are inactive reserve. So I actually was supposed to go to meetings or, the drill weekends, and I didn't make most of them. Yeah. It was in Vancouver. I mean, it was actually difficult to get there. The closest place was Vancouver Barracks, and at that time I worked weekends, and so it made it more difficult. Yeah. So I finished up the 6, and yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at how quickly Desert Storm went? How short a war that was?
Yes. Yeah. I remember when we first got there, it was Desert Shield, and we were doing the building of the hospitals and, doing things. And then I think it was in February, time kind of rolled all together. All of a sudden, we hear that war was declared, and I swear that day is when the jets started flying nonstop. And, when we got used to them, then it stopped, and it was over. Yeah, it was really strange.
So you were over there before it actually started?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we could see they burnt the oil fields in the ocean. We could see those when we got closer to the coastline there, and it was black and stinky and gross and really gross.
And did you feel like, when those are around, you feel like America had such technological advantage and advantage in weaponry that it was almost like unfair in a way?
I actually don't know, because we didn't see a whole lot of that. Like occasionally we would be able to see something on CNN, but most of it, we didn't have any idea really what was going on. Sometimes we could sneak in somewhere and, catch a glimpse of like regular news, but we were not kept apprised of what was actually going on, which is weird, to look back. I mean, we should have known.
Makes sense. Or how was there? I guess thinking back to the question about stress, did you feel stressed when injured people came in? Do you feel like, am I going to be the last person they see?
Yeah, for sure.
Psychologically, what was it like to deal with kind of that?
That was, I had never seen, well, none of us really had ever seen anything like these kids that, were landmine sweeping. Some had their limb blown off, and I mean, shards of stuff everywhere, burns. It was actually pretty horrific, and I just thank God we didn't have very many. We had some, other minor injuries and, a couple broken bones or, things, but, we had probably just a total of maybe 10 of those Marines. And I still wonder, if a couple of them made it to Germany and if they made it home to their mom. And being a mom now makes it so much different. I was not a mom then, and I can't even imagine sending my kid off to such unknown. That's the stressful thing, is everything is so unknown.
Do you guys have any other questions? Anything else?
Did you bring back any souvenirs?
Okay, yeah. I brought back this thing. So this is what the men wear on their heads with the red.
The turban?
Well, it actually goes like this, and then they set it on top. Like if you look up a picture of like a Saudi man, you'll see like this. But it's actually, and this was apparently like the real thing. So it even has a little tag still, if you wanna look at it.
That's real soft.
Yeah, it is, and that's from 1990. It's been stuck in my drawer since then. And I did buy some little gold earrings and little doodads, but we were not really anywhere to bring back a whole lot of stuff.
Was it a pretty big culture shock, just the difference between the two, us and over there?
Oh, it was an amazingly huge culture shock. Especially because they look down on American women, especially so harshly. Basically they thought we were dirty whores. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but that's really what they thought. And women couldn't drive there. I don't know if they can now, but just recently, yeah. I mean, it was totally different. Like here, you could walk around and not expect to be touched, like on your breast and your butt, and you don't expect that there. And it wasn't even necessarily the Saudi people, but they had people from other countries that were there that worked in their houses or whatever, and they thought we were very dirty and thought that they had access. I mean, you would walk by and they would like just grab you and just touch you and just, and that just seemed acceptable to them. Most of the regular people that I met were fine, like the man and his son. He was very respectful. He actually gave me some prayer beads for letting his son, twirl my hair, and he was very nice. I met a couple Saudi women, and they didn't really, not met. We kind of chatted as little as we could. The language barrier is obviously huge, but just seeing women's rights so much less than what we have here. So much less. And I grew up like a feminist, women power. Yeah, that was not okay.
Did it give you more appreciation for our culture?
It did. It did. There are a lot of things here that are wrong, but there are a lot of things here that are right. You go other places and, you wouldn't be able to walk around with, whatever you wanted written on your shirt, or, whatever kind of hat you wanted, and, wear shorts, just weird things. You couldn't wear a tank top in a lot of places. It definitely, women couldn't vote in a lot of places. We have a lot of things here that a lot of countries don't have, and that is worth protecting for sure.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I'll try to get a couple group pictures here. Figure that out.